Dr. Robin Rose, double board certified physician, okay? Long COVID specialist. Terrain Health is the clinic where they are coming up with their own research and their own protocols to help people like me and you, if you have it. Doc, good to see you.
Good to see you. How are you?
As a clinician, why does it matter that there is data that isn't coming out about what may be happening, let's say in the latest instance, with the vaccine? Why does it matter so much?
Because I think a lot of people, so as a clinician and a physician that is dealing with this on a daily basis, you know, yes, there's patients that have long COVID from the virus, but there's patients also that have had side effects from the vaccine and have disabilities and are suffering, and they want to be heard and they're not heard. And so data like this coming out can be very validating for those people. Not to say that it's telling you, you know, it's not telling us what patients went on to long COVID or not, or onto long vax, as I call it, or not, but it's validating because there's millions of people out there that are suffering and their voices are not being heard.
Understood. Well, I'll tell you, part of it is it's bad news, right? And the government's not in the business of spreading bad news or news that is bad for it. But I'll tell you what I don't like, and Robin's not going to like that I'm saying this, but she can yell at me later. She knows things that she is afraid to tell you because of the reaction from political circles that will come after her. So the people who are trying to get us better are worried about what they do and say because of politics. It's a bad place we put ourselves in. And good for Robin for deciding to come out anyway. So the other study you flagged for me, which is proof of the problem of what happens when you don't have the data, is that you can misdiagnose as well. So myocarditis, very scary, heart ailment, affects young people, affects older people, but it's the young people we worry about. We had thought it was from the virus. Now they have a study that comes out, says in all these cadavers that they looked at, these autopsies, no, it's not the virus. Well, then what is it?
Okay, let me explain this. So basically, the vaccine, after the vaccine was rolled out, we saw, especially in younger males, that there was an uptick in myocarditis compared to other vaccines in the past. Okay. However, there was a camp, you know, there's this vaccine camp, and then there's also the COVID camp. And the people that are very, you know, wanting to talk about what the vaccine can do to people, they were very happy when this study emerged because it showed in these cadavers, in these autopsies, that there was no myocarditis found in these autopsy studies on the, you know, when they examined the heart, you know, obviously post-mortem. So that was a big deal. But then you have other studies, Chris, that show, you know, there was a meta-analysis done that looked at 50 studies, all, you know, post-COVID patients as well. 548 hearts were examined, and it showed that there was myocardial necrosis, or, you know, death of the cells of the heart, okay? And that there was a lot of damage to the heart. My point is here, and like, so let's get real, okay? This is what I want to talk to you about. There's two camps. There's like this vaccine camp, and then there's this COVID camp. There's no camps. These are people's lives. People are suffering, okay? There's a multitude of issues here that have to be dealt with by the scientists and the physicians at large, okay? And we need to recognize that there's multiple causes to long COVID and that there's multiple factors at play. That's what I want people to understand, okay? People need to stop digging their heels in. They need to come together, and they need to act like physicians and scientists, okay? Where we debate these things, we get it out in the open, and we talk about it, okay? As a physician, my job is to observe, to make hypotheses, okay? And see if these things are right or not. Not to not talk about these things, because we have a crisis here. There are tens of millions of people sick. And you're right, a lot of them don't realize they have COVID until they get to a doctor, long COVID, until they get to a doctor like me. And we do the right diagnostics on them, and we build a timeline with them, and we get the right history from them. And you can show that there's a direct correlation between when they were exposed to the virus or when they maybe had a vaccine. And
Right.
We don't need to point fingers. There doesn't have to be a political narrative here. We just need to talk about it and get people better and come up with solutions. That's what we need to do.
And so Dr. Rose and her group at Terrain Health, they're having to do the research themselves and kind of combine all over the world with people who are focusing on this real time, because who knows what the governments are telling us and what they're not. I appreciate you for coming on, especially on a Friday night. You must be very busy.
Very busy.
All right, so to be continued. Dr. Rose says she'll keep coming on to talk about these issues with us as they emerge with long COVID. And as I get more into my treatment protocol with Dr. Rose, I'll be sharing that on the Substack with her, okay? Because that's for people who have long COVID and want to learn about it, and clinicians who treat it. I know a lot of you don't check those boxes. Dr. Rose, thank you. Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to newsnationnow.com, newsnationnow.com, and you can find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button down below. Then you will get more of NewsNation's fact-driven coverage.